A disappointing season for USC in 2023. Will they bounce back in 2024? Before we get into the game-by-game predictions, just my thoughts on this team. You look at the offense, you look at Miller Moss and what he did in the bowl game, and a lot of hype around that. I'm not going to buy into that and say that he's going to be a Heisman candidate or anything like that, but I expect him to do very well here at USC and potentially be really, really good with Lincoln Riley as the head coach. You can't count that out. So you're in good shape at quarterback, running back position. Adding Woody Marks is huge. They've got weapons at wide receiver. Zachariah Branch, obviously going to be one of the biggest playmakers in all of college football in 2024. I think, again, receiver is solid, but I don't think they have a ton of depth there. That could potentially be a bit of an issue. The offensive line, how good are they going to be? That's going to be a big question mark. If they're really good up front, this offense is going to be very, very tough to stop. If they have some struggles up front like they did last year, then I don't think USC is going to reach their full potential offensively. Now, on the defensive side, the talent's there. You look at this roster, it doesn't look bad at all. Defensive line right there in the middle, maybe a bit of a weakness. But, yeah, overall, it's really been about, I think, the scheme and the coaching staff, and it just has not worked, so they made a change. And if that all comes together and this defense is average, then USC becomes a really dangerous team in 2024. Now, they've got a tough schedule. Here it is. The over-under win total for them is 7.5. So 7-5, 8-4, the most likely scenarios for USC, which I think is fair. I mean, there are a lot of games on the schedule that they could lose. You look at LSU, Michigan, Wisconsin, Penn State, Washington on the road, UCLA on the road, Nebraska, Notre Dame, even Minnesota or Maryland on the road. So it's going to be a really tough schedule. Let's go game by game, and we'll start with this LSU game, which is going to be a tough one. I've got them losing that game. So it's one that, you look at the two defenses, and they both really struggled last year. How will they be this year? I don't think either defense is going to be great. Honestly, I think USC probably has more potential to. Well, I wouldn't even say that. It's tough. It's tough to say which defense is going to be better. I love the linebackers at LSU, and they're going to fly around. And Harold Perkins, he can change a game by himself. And I don't know if USC really has that type of player on their defense. So you look at Harold Perkins, maybe he makes a few plays in this game. LSU has started slow in these season openers, so that's something to consider as well. I wouldn't be shocked if USC won this game, but I just trust LSU a little bit more. Their offensive line is going to be really, really good, and I think that's a problem for USC. I think LSU able to do really whatever they want in this game offensively, and then for USC, yeah, I think they'll score a lot. But I just think LSU has those playmakers on defense that maybe make a play here or there to change the game and get the win. So I think it's a shootout, very close game, but I'm going LSU Tigers in this one. They play Utah State the next week. That should be a pretty easy win. So a 1-1 start before going to the Big House to face Michigan. They do have a bye week before this game. That'll be helpful. I don't think Michigan's offense is going to be very good. We've talked about that, but it's going to be a tough rushing attack to stop, and I don't know if USC can really stop them. I think Michigan's able to run the football in this game. And then on the flip side, I think the defensive line for Michigan will dominate up front. That's going to be a problem for USC. USC probably will hit a few big plays here and there and keep this game pretty close. But I think Michigan, I feel pretty confident, honestly, that Michigan wins this game. Again, I just think in the trenches, Michigan's so much ahead of USC, and that'll be the difference. Plus home field advantage going in their favor as well. You got Wisconsin the next week at home. Good to be back home, but this I think is a tough matchup for USC. You look at Wisconsin, they've got a really, really good secondary. Their weakness on defense would probably be the defensive line. So you wonder about USC, can they take advantage of that? Can their offensive line have a big day? Can they run the football in this one? I think they'll have a chance. I think it'll be close. But then on the flip side, again, with Tyler Van Dyke and this Wisconsin offense, I think USC struggles to slow them down. And the balanced attack that Wisconsin's going to have, because they're going to have good running backs as well, I think to keep this USC defense off balance. And I'm going with Wisconsin to win this game. So USC off to a bad start at 1-3. I do think it'll get better. They play Minnesota the next week on the road. This is, again, a game that they could lose. I don't even think I mentioned this one earlier, but Minnesota is, they bring in a transfer quarterback, and I think this offense is going to be much, much better. They're going to have a really good run game. I'm concerned about Minnesota's defense in this game, and I think at the end of the day, that's going to be the difference. I think USC scores. Minnesota likes to do, PJ Fleck, he likes to run the ball and control the clock. So this will be interesting. I wouldn't be shocked if Minnesota won this game, but I think the overall explosiveness of this USC offense is going to be too much. I don't think Minnesota is going to be able to keep up. And I'm going with USC, but wouldn't be surprised if Minnesota kept this game close. They've got Penn State the next week, November 12th at home. This is going to be a really good defense, and I think it's going to be tough for USC to score in this game. But if Penn State has a weakness on defense, it's the secondary, especially the cornerback position. I think USC is able to take advantage of that. Problem for USC, though, is going to be slowing down this Penn State rushing attack, and we know how good it's going to be. So I think this game's going to be really, really close. Again, I think Penn State's able to run the ball in this game. They're able to score points, but I think USC hits some big plays, and I think their passing attack will be good in this one. And I think USC outlasts them. I'm going to go USC to get the win here and get a huge win over Penn State. They got Maryland the next week. Really not that high on Maryland. I don't think this team's going to be great this year. They'll be okay. The game is on the road, so I guess you never know. But I just think USC, they start to put it together. I think the defense starting to play better. The offensive line will start to gel. And by the time you get to this point, I think this USC team is going to be really, really good. I think they beat Maryland. And then the next week they have Rutgers. I just don't see Rutgers being able to score enough points to really hang around in this game. USC wins this one. Unless the Rutgers defense just really, really makes this an ugly game, a rock fight. But I don't see that happening. I've got USC winning that one at home. And that game will actually be on after, I think, game 1 of the World Series, a Friday night game. It's going to come on at like 11 o'clock Eastern time. Kind of weird. But anyways, Washington up next on the road November 2nd. This is if you look at Washington, this is a solid team. Really, they don't have any big weaknesses except for the offensive line. If USC has a weakness on defense, it is that defensive line. So I think Washington is able to take advantage of that. And I think their offensive line starts to kind of come together by this point in the season. That's a tough place to play. I think the balanced attack for Washington on offense will be able to score. Yeah, I think USC will score in this game as well, but I'm going home field advantage to make the difference. Washington pulls off perhaps a slight upset over USC. The next game is against Nebraska. They get a bye week before this game. Time to prepare. The Nebraska offense with Dylan Raiola, how good are they going to be? They don't really scare me looking at it right now. I don't think they're going to be really, really good offensively. I think they'll be solid. And kind of same thing with the defense. They'll be solid. But I don't know if they're going to be good enough to win this game in the Coliseum. I've got USC winning. A pretty close game, but I think USC's got this one. UCLA the next week on the road, November 23rd. UCLA is kind of like Washington. I think they're really being underrated. UCLA's still got some talent, and they've got a good run game. They should be able to run the ball in this one and be able to score. So I think it's another shootout. I think, yes, USC's defense is going to be improved this year, but it's not going to be that much better. And I do still think they'll be in a lot of shootouts, but I think they're able to win this one. I think, again, by this point in the season, they're really playing well. Up front, offensive line should be coming together, and I think the defense will get better as the season goes along. They close things out with Notre Dame at home. Should be a pretty good game here. Notre Dame, can they throw the football? Can they stay balanced on offense, or could we see perhaps a game like the Penn State game that USC is able to win? This Notre Dame defense, though, really, really good, and they don't really have a weakness at all. We talked about Penn State, maybe their cornerbacks being a weakness, but Notre Dame really solid across the board. I think they make enough stops on defense, and their offense with a better passing attack this year is going to be enough to get the win. So I've got USC losing this one, finishing 7-5, a decent season. Again, the schedule is just really, really tough. If they had an easier schedule, could easily see this as a 9-3 type team. But with this schedule, I'm going 7-5. You guys agree? Do you disagree? Give me your thoughts and your predictions on USC down in the comments below.